It's Sports by the Book at the South Point Studio. Here's Jeff Parles.
Welcome in at Sports by the Book here at the South Point Studio. Welcome in the first Sunday of December, and it is more than just your NFL Sunday preview today. Within a few moments, we will know the four teams going to the college football playoff. Normally, we would know who the four teams are. By the way, Alex White here as well. Where's Alex? Pleasure as always. Good to see you this morning.
You too.
So we know. We know who the four would be going normally in this circumstance. We know two. Michigan, Washington are going. Other than that, there are a lot of question marks this morning. Alabama, of course, upsetting Georgia yesterday. Texas throttling Oklahoma State. Florida State, ugly, but they get it done against Louisville. And I know there are some people out there arguing for Georgia at the moment, Alex, but I think the Bulldogs are cooked. Yeah. It's Texas, Alabama, and Florida State for two spots, and it'll be fascinating to know in the next 5 to 10 minutes what the committee does. And as soon as the committee has those out, and as soon as Chris Andrews and company have those numbers in behind us, our guy Vinny Magliulo will come on in and tell you what the numbers are for those college football semifinals on the first of the new year.
Where are you leaning? Do you
If I were doing this,
yes.
I would leave Florida State out. But we've watched the last 2 weeks from them. Their defense has been amazing. Yep. No arguing that. But it's just hard for me to put in a team that is clearly not of the level of the others. Where Texas, they're clearly to me, clearly deserving.
Yes.
Alabama, yeah. You know what? You win the SEC, even though the SEC is down. You beat Georgia in Atlanta. Yes, I know they needed a prayer to beat Auburn 2 weeks ago, but they should be in over Florida State. Now, I don't know what the committee's going to do. I'm not even going to venture a guess. This is the first time we've really seen this type of scenario. The closest we had to this was in the first year of this, where Ohio State with Cardale Jones as the number 3 quarterback, and TCU went from 3 to 6 in the final rankings. Ohio State moved in, and Ohio State went on to win a national title. So I think that's a lot different than this circumstance, though, because Ohio State showed it with Cardale Jones the last week of the season. They throttled Wisconsin in Indianapolis that week. Florida State, I mean, they were lucky that Louisville was inept yesterday. If they played a team that had any semblance of an offense in that game, they lose. Louisville handed them 6 points on top of it, Alex.
Two big things for me. Alabama knocked off the 2-time national champion yesterday. So it'll be a shame to see them get knocked out. I do think Texas gets in over them because of the head-to-head. And then with Florida State, if what Chris Felica said, that Brock Glenn would have been the second-string quarterback, why are we waiting for Rodemaker to come back? We saw from both of these two guys, right, for Florida State, we're not getting Jordan Travis back. If we were going to get him back, then I could see them putting Florida State in. But that kind of changes things for me with those two backup quarterbacks.
I don't, again, we'll find out. We'll find out soon. We'll find out in the next 5 minutes. All I can say is we're going to have if Florida State's in against Michigan, which I would assume if Florida State goes, they're the 4, not the 3, protect the number 1 seed, even though Florida State was undefeated. Everyone with their eyes knows that Texas is better or Alabama is better than Florida State at the moment. But regardless, we know Washington's going. We know Michigan's going. They're the 2 unbeatens. Pac-12, Big Ten. Pac-12 gets a team in their final year. And also, too, I will say this. I think the Pac-12 actually is pretty fortunate that Washington won that game on Friday night, because there would be some unnecessary sweating if Oregon won a coin flip game, even though we know from power ratings-wise that Oregon was higher than Washington, still is higher than Washington in most people's power ratings. But that's not how the committee operates, as we know. But we'll get that as they announce it, hopefully, in the next few minutes. All right, to the NFL we go in the meantime.
Okay.
When we get those 4 teams in the playoffs, we will let you know right here on Sports by the Book. Well, let's get to it. Boy, what a drop-off. We go to Bailey Zappi right out of the gate here, Alex. The money's been on New England, though. Mac Jones bench, Zappi starts today. Not much of a shock, even though we didn't get it confirmed until this morning. Right now, 4 is the line, all the way down to 4 with the L.A. Chargers in this one against the New England Patriots. Actually, the hook just came back on behind us. There is only 1-4 in the market right now. Chargers, 4.5 on the road, total 39, Alex.
I know you're not backing the Chargers again. I am going under this total. I got under 40.5. I still like it here. These two teams combined are 16-6 to the under. The Chargers have gone under in 8 of their last 9. You mentioned it. We have Bailey Zappi playing for the Patriots. I don't expect a ton of offense from them. And then their defense. I trust their defense to keep this a low-scoring game. There's also going to be rain here in Foxborough, so I think both offenses will be conservative. I don't have a strong feel on the side, though.
This screams to me. New England somehow wins in Charger fashion by the Chargers, and Brandon Staley's out. That's the feel I get going into this game. Now, I don't want to chase a bad number. Could have had this number as high as 6 earlier in the week. So I don't want to chase the 4.5. But this really does feel like, to me, as a game where, again, the Chargers are basically, they have to win out. If they're going to make the playoffs, they have to win out at this point, realistically speaking, especially with a schedule where, look, the two best opponents they play the rest of the way are both at home, Kansas City, and I guess you still count that as Buffalo, or if you think Denver's better than Buffalo at this point, they get them both at home. They get Denver twice. They play the Raiders here, which is actually one of the few games where the Raider fans are going to have a lot more than the visiting fans here in Vegas, as we know, because not many Charger fans. But regardless, this Charger team has wasted so much talent over the years. They're doing it again here. And I'll say this. I said this earlier in the week. I think this is Bill Belichick's job next year. I think Bill Belichick is not going to be in the Patriots anymore. He's going to be the Chargers coach next year. I know Matt Never is probably shaking his head in the back on that, but I that's what I think. I think this is Staley's out at the end of the year regardless, even if they make the playoffs. I think Staley's probably out. And Belichick, everyone mutually parts ways, and Belichick's coaching a team already with a formed quarterback in Justin Herbert that needs help on the defense next year. That's my traditional sports talk angle for today, Alex.
You said it Friday, and I was a little caught off guard, but I actually like it a lot. I think it would be a perfect move for both parties.
Let's go to New Orleans and Detroit. Saints, 4.5 behind us. It's mostly 4 in the market on this game, 47.5 the total on New Orleans and Detroit. Alex, I'm on the Saints. I actually bet them, and you know how much it kind of pains me in order to bet New Orleans with the way they've looked and my thoughts on this team this year. But I know that Detroit's been betting this game here at the South Point from 3.5 to 4.5. I think that defense is what it is at this point. They were forcing turnovers at the beginning of the year. They were getting pressure up front. They're not getting pressure anymore other than Aiden Hutchinson. And that secondary has been exposed the last few weeks. The Bears should have got him 2 weeks ago. Green Bay got him last week. I understand it's extended rest. I understand that New Orleans has looked awful at times this year. But I would not be shocked if this is an outright upset with New Orleans getting it done as a 4.5-point underdog at home today. Hey, again, you don't get New Orleans that big of a dog at home barely ever. So I'll take the points with New Orleans very happily, a little sprinkle on the money line as well.
I'm very shocked that you're backing the Saints here. My favorite play in this game is the over because I do think we are going to get back and forth between these two, and we've seen both defenses struggle. I do like the Lions in this spot, though. I didn't lay the points. I did take them on the money line. They are getting their veteran left guard, Jonah Jackson, back. He's been out the last 2 games. And what have we seen? We've seen the worst offensive line production, and we've seen Jared Goff look terrible again. He's had 6 turnovers, 3 interceptions, and 3 fumbles. I think this will be huge for Detroit. I think they're going to be able to move the ball again, and I think they're going to give up a little points too. So love the over, and then I've also backed the Lions on the money line.
Detroit, I was going to say teaser today potentially with New Orleans, but we don't tease up like that. But regardless, I will say this with Detroit, where the Lions are still going to win that division. They're still going to win the NFC North. They're 8-3. But you would automatically, if you're a Lions fan going into the year, hey, you're 8-3 going into the year. Yeah, I do take that in a heartbeat. Don't even think twice. I am really concerned long term on this team defensively because 3 weeks since the bye, they've looked bad. Remember that the 2 wins, miraculous comeback against the Bears that had more to do with the Bears than the Lions, and the 41-38 game against the Chargers where no one got a stop. And look, for Detroit's sake, the rest of the schedule, New Orleans doesn't scare you on offense. Chicago, same sort of deal, even though, again, I think Fields makes them significantly better on offense, despite what people think about him. The Broncos, doing it with defense more than offense. 2 games against the Vikings. Josh Dobbs might end up getting benched. That could be Nick Mullins win those games. And the Cowboys, they'll get beat by Dallas that next to last week of the season. But Detroit still has a backdoor shot at the 1 seed. It is still there. The schedule is manageable enough if they can handle their business starting today. I just don't think they're going to handle their business in this one in New Orleans. Again, 4.5 here at the South Point, mostly 4 in the market. All right, let's go to the game of the day. Yikes. Jets, Falcons, Ritter, Boyle, 33 the total, which is the lowest of the day here. Falcons on the road, 2-point favorites. It's just an indictment of what the Jets have devolved to on the offensive side of the ball this year that Atlanta is favored. But, hey, that's your first place Atlanta Falcons, Alex White.
Hey, I don't know what to do with this one. I did take the most popular bet, which you told me, Young Hoku, was over 1.5 field goals. I think this is going to be a lot of punting and a lot of field goals. Both defenses show up today, and I don't know what we're going to get offensively. We know the Falcons are good. They have plenty of weapons, and when Desmond Ridder is not throwing the ball to the other team, they usually are very good, but this is an elite Jets defense that they're going against. So if it total wasn't so low, I would be on the under, but we could have some defensive touchdowns. And then Chris told us on Friday, 17 first half was juiced way up. So got to look for some prop bets and some other angles in this one.
Field goal kickers. Again, the Jets have scored 70% of their points on field goals this year, which is just beyond pathetic. The quarterback matchup concerns me if you take this game under. And I know that may sound backwards to some. My reasoning is that the defenses are going to score in this game, where Tim Boyle should not be playing in the NFL. His numbers in college were the worst that you've ever seen from a legitimate starting quarterback. He has more interceptions than touchdowns in his limited NFL action. He's only on the team because he's Aaron Rodgers' buddy. And from the Jets' perspective, it's a joke that he's starting over Trevor Siemian today, but that's a different argument for a different day. And you know my thoughts on Desmond Ridder. Even though he played well last week. I will give him last week. After the interception, he played pretty well last week in that win against New Orleans. And as Chris said this, at least on the side, and I didn't touch this game other than betting both field goal kickers over 1.5 field goals.
Very good.
Road favorite the week after being a home dog usually is a bad sign on that road favorite. Usually. Now, earlier in the year, we had Minnesota on the road go to Lambeau after being a home dog, and they were a road favorite in that game. Minnesota won that game pretty easily, but they lost Kirk Cousins in the process in that game with the ruptured Achilles. But there is something to what Chris said on Friday with you were a home dog the week before, now you're a road favorite. It's usually doesn't go particularly great for that team that is the road favorite that second week, and that is Atlanta in this circumstance. All right, let's go to Arizona and Pittsburgh. By the way, they are just dragging this thing out for who's in the college football playoff right now. Usually within 5 minutes, done. Now, we're 15 minutes in already, haven't said anything. All right, Arizona and Pittsburgh, up to 6.5, 41 the total odds. 6.5 is market high. It's mostly 6 right now. You know, it's hard to bet Pittsburgh games over, but even though this game has been hit to the over, I still think it's okay at 41 over. Arizona, we have talked about this, Alex White. The Cardinals are awful in the second half.
Awful.
They are awful. And this would be one of those games where if you took Arizona first half and then came back with Pittsburgh second half, I would have no problem with that.
Completely
If
agree.
that's the way you wanted to play it, that's fine. But I do like the over in this game. I think what we saw last week, I don't want to say it was permanently real from Pittsburgh's offense. Yeah, they only scored 16 points. I get that. But you're now playing the worst team in the NFL. They are, even though we overrated their second worst team in the NFL. Sorry, Carolina, you're still worse. But a team we thought was going to be historically bad, who's been just a normal bad team. A normal bad team. And there's a lot of normal bad teams every single year in the NFL. But their defense stinks. And I think for Pittsburgh, you're in the scenario where, hey, we have Arizona and New England these next 2 weeks at home. There's a chance to get all the way up to win 9. Win 9 before December 10th. By the way, that would continue Mike Tomlin's streak. Hey, Matt Never, did you know that Mike Tomlin's never finished under 500? Did you know that? Yeah, see, never didn't know. But regardless, this is an opportunity for Pittsburgh's offense. And the back door is going to be open late in this game. We're only at 41. I do like this over here, Alex.
We're on different sides here. I like this under a lot, and mostly because of their defense. They've allowed just 8 offensive touchdowns in the last 6 weeks. So, and they're really good at creating turnovers. We talked about that. Third in takeaways. I do believe in their offense. I think, we did see a huge improvement last week, but I'm not there yet. I do think it's going to be a tighter game than you're alluding to, but love that in game. I think if Arizona goes up and scores quickly, jump back on Pittsburgh. That is my plan. I laid a little bit with Pittsburgh -5.5. I wouldn't suggest it because even the Pittsburgh fans are saying take the money line, but I think they're a far better team here in this one.
First half Arizona, second half Pittsburgh. I don't mind that strategy. But again, you could obviously get wiped out. If Pittsburgh has a big first half, you get wiped out, then you don't even bother with that second half bet. See, the question marks are on the screen up there for the college football playoff. We'll have those rankings once they are announced, and then as soon as they are announced and put into the system, our guy Vinny Magliulo will be joining us to give you the numbers for those college football semifinals. Continuing along, here's Carolina, and this has been the biggest mover of the whole week, and it's because of injuries on the defensive side of the ball for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here, Alex. 6 all the way down the ladder to 3.5 now on the Bucs. At home against Carolina, 38.5 down to 36.5. As we know, of course, Frank Reich fired earlier in the week. Chris Tabor will be the interim head coach for the Carolina Panthers. Alex, I am doing absolutely nothing with this. At the bigger numbers, I thought Carolina was okay, but not at 3.5. We're not going to take a bad number, even with all those injuries on the Tampa side of the ball. We are just going to stay out of this one here today.
I am absolutely not touching the Panthers here. I'm not buying the firing the head coach and then bouncing back here because their offense is just not good. They're last in yards per play behind the Giants, and they're last in yards per pass behind the Jets. So shows me I have no confidence in this team. Tampa Bay's pretty good. I understand they have some injuries, but they're a tough team. Their defense has been pretty good all year long. I really like Mike Evans in this game. I went over 63.5 receiving yards for him. He's clearly Baker Mayfield's favorite target, seeing about 60% of the offensive snaps. He had 70 last week and 2 touchdowns and 143 in their last home game, which is another point I want to bring up. 4 of their last 5 games, Tampa Bay were on the road. They won the one home game against the Titans 20-6. So I feel like this is a good spot for the Buccaneers to get back on track. They just had a rough stretch there on the road.
This is just for the Bucs. Again, they are alive. They're 4-7. They are alive in a division because of the ineptitude of the teams in front of them. And Tampa, look, they have 4 divisional games left on the card. They already beat Atlanta earlier, they already lost to Atlanta and beat New Orleans earlier in the year. They get the Saints at home a few weeks from now. They get Atlanta in Atlanta next week. And they're both the Carolina games. The other games on the board are at Green Bay and Jacksonville. They'll be underdogs in those games, but them going into Lambeau wouldn't stun me. Be a little surprised if Jacksonville blew that game in Tampa near the end of the year, but hey, they're not done. Now, I'm not saying they're going to win the division. I think either New Orleans or Atlanta is going to get it done. I still lean the Falcons because they have the win over Tampa and they have the win over New Orleans. But boy, it's still there. It just shows how horrible of a division this is. With the Bucs still alive. By the way, there's a lot of 3 -20 in the market on that game now. South Point, the lone flat 3.5. So if you like Carolina, best line in existence right now. Here with Carolina again, you missed the best of it though.
Yeah,
on this
definitely.
one. All right, Indy and Tennessee. Let's go there real quick. Titans. Home dogs in this one. Colts, 1-point favorites. If the playoffs started today, congratulations, Indianapolis. You're in. They're in. Amazingly enough, they would be the number 7 seed in the AFC as of this moment. Alex, I think the wrong team is favored in this game. Tennessee has been much better at home this year. And for Indy, I just wonder on this 3-game winning streak that they're on. They beat Carolina. We know they stink. They beat New England. We know they stink. And they beat the Bucs, who I think are, as we just said, only alive because their division's horrible. going on the road as a small favorite here is a role that Indy is not used to. Now, again, it is a divisional game. It is a familiarity factor for both of these teams. But when push comes to shove, and also, by the way, of course, earlier in the year, Indy beat Tennessee by a touchdown in Indianapolis. But I like the Titans. The Titans have been undefeated in Nashville so far this year, and I expect Derrick Henry to be able to run on this Indianapolis defense. I actually just moneylined it. I didn't bother with the point. I took an even money line on Tennessee today.
I think that's smart. I don't have a feel on the side at all. I just don't trust Tennessee. I was betting on them a lot in beginning of the season. But I do like the over in this one, over 42. I think we're going to get a lot of points. As you mentioned, the home-away split for Tennessee, averaging 24.8 points at home compared to 12.3 on the road. That is, I think it's the largest in the league. Then the Colts play fast, not quite as fast with Minshew compared to Anthony Richardson, but they're still the 6th quickest in the league. So a lot of points I'm expecting in this one.
For Indianapolis, again, the AFC is wide open. Denver, of course, we'll get to Denver, Houston in a little bit. That is a gigantic game in the AFC playoff picture today. But look, we'll see how this all plays out with the Colts and the Titans today. Indianapolis, again, a 1-point favorite on the road in this one. They will eventually release the teams that are in the college football playoff. Don't worry, everyone. We'll get that in a few moments.
On this game as well, you mentioned it the other day, Will Levis in Nashville. Much more comfortable. 2-0 at home.
Yes.
0-3 on the road so far.
So I mean, even just looking at the numbers, like forget just the win and losses. Obviously, Levis was amazing in that game against the Falcons.
The
first one. And then, look, I don't think Levis played well last week. I thought he was just ordinary, but he didn't turn the ball over. That's the big thing for Levis, where they've gotten in trouble when he was turning the ball over. Like, that's why they got clobbered in Tampa. That's why they ended up losing that Pittsburgh game, was because of turnovers. But we'll see how it plays out in that one. So before we get to Miami and Washington, they are finally revealing the college football playoff teams. Michigan, no shock, number 1. They will go. We'll see which bowl they go to, depending on their opponent. The number 1 seed gets to select what bowl they go to. With all those teams based in the Southeast, I think I would take the Rose Bowl if I were Michigan, if I were at the number 1 overall seed. But no shock there. So, again, they're going to just take their time with revealing this one. Michigan, Alex, of course, yesterday with a win over Iowa. Boy, if you took those Iowa team totals over, didn't matter which one you took, you didn't get there. 26-0. I will say this with Michigan yesterday. I thought their offense was awful in that game. I credit Iowa's defense. They played their behinds off.
Yes.
They were just given no chance by their own offense. Both of Michigan's touchdowns were on fields shorter than 15 yards.
Yeah,
so
special teams really.
Yeah, special teams, a forced fumble on defense. Not overly impressive in their win a day ago.
Yeah, they did cover the number, though. So I think
they did.
Yeah, and they are clearly the best team. I think they're very deserving of that 1 spot.
Washington comes in at number 2. We knew this was going to happen as well. So far, no shocks. If they screwed up the 1 and 2, they really would have been something. Washington, of course, as we talked about yesterday, 34-31 over Oregon on Friday night here in Vegas. Well-deserved for the Huskies, who have managed to win close games. And 13-0, they're going to be the only team in Pac-12's history to have an 0-12 season and a 13-0 season. So both sides of the spectrum for that program over the years. But here they are, the Big Ten of next year with the top 2 seats in this tournament. It's crazy. There you go. Texas in at number 3. So Washington will play Texas. So the Horns go from 7 to 3 with their blowout victory over Oklahoma State. So I think this is right. I think this is right that Texas vaults all the way to number 3. So the decision's going to come down to Alabama versus Florida State in a second on who number 4 is. But the Horns, you go on the road to Tuscaloosa and you beat Alabama. Yep. Your only loss is a coin flip game to Oklahoma, where, quite frankly, they should have won that game. I think the committee got this right, bopping Texas all the way up to number 3. And that is going to be an awesome game in that 2-3 with Washington and Texas. And then here you go, the moment that everyone has been waiting for. On number 4, the Michigan Wolverines are the number 1 seed. They will play in whichever bowl game is they're going to take their time. So we'll get that in a second. But regardless with Texas, happy the committee put them in. They deserve it.
Yes.
Going into the month of October, I thought they were the number 1 team in the country, at least by me. As the years gone along, of course, you get through the Ewers injury.
Yes.
And here you are, Texas in the college football playoff. I'm very curious to see what the guys behind us open that Washington-Texas game at, because that is, to me, a pretty even game. I actually would make Texas a small favorite in that one, Alex.
Ooh, I got to look at my numbers there. But great point about Texas and what they've overcome, because with their quarterback, Quinn Ewers, going out. Then it took him a little bit to come back, right? The first couple games, barely won those games, but now they are rolling again. Credit to you. You were all over that yesterday, saying to lay those points. And they handled their business against Oklahoma State yesterday.
Of course, they show number 6 first. Good job, everybody. Georgia falls from 1 to 6. Not much of a shock there. That was really good, right? Oh, they put Georgia at 4. Great. No, Georgia comes in at number 6. Not any shock there. Just put the team up of who's in. Let's just do this already. You've already put this far enough along between Alabama and Florida State, which, again, to me, that was the debate all the way through, was the Tide and the Noles, not Texas. I thought they should have been in, and there they go. Alabama is in at number 4 over Florida State, so Florida State is out. 13-0, not good enough for the Noles. Alabama is in. They will take on Michigan. Florida State will go to the Orange Bowl to take on Georgia. Well, I will say this. From a power rating standpoint, this is clearly the correct decision, where you have taking conference champs only. So, yes, I know Georgia was number 1 going into yesterday for most power ratings. Yes, I know the Ducks were in the top 3 going into this weekend. But guess what? Neither of those teams won. Neither of those teams won this weekend. They're out.
Yep.
Oregon's probably going to the Fiesta Bowl. Georgia will play Florida State in the Orange Bowl. That, based off those rankings, that's what we're getting in Miami. But from our perspective, from the betting side, they got the right. If it was between the top 5, they clearly got this right with one. And I actually think they got this right in order.
I do too.
Based off of what, again, I think Texas is better than Alabama. I know I'm in the minority on that. Texas went to Tuscaloosa, beat the Tide. But here you go, a college football playoff that, in all honesty, by the way, Michigan did pick the Rose Bowl. So it's going to be Michigan, Alabama in Pasadena on New Year's Day, and Washington will have to travel all the way to New Orleans to take on Texas in New Orleans.
First time ever an undefeated team from a Power 5 has not made it into the playoffs, but I think the committee did get it right this time.
So I will say this. You have to wonder what the long-term ramifications could be for the teams in the ACC. Florida State, obviously, Florida State, Clemson, those top teams that have obviously looked at possibly shifting out. You have to wonder what this does. Now, granted, I don't think long-term it should have much impact, because if it wasn't for the stupid alliance stuff from a year ago or 3 years ago when the SEC poached Texas and Oklahoma, we'd be in a 12-team playoff already. And Florida State would be playing Liberty right now in the 5-12. And you know what? They would have an opportunity to prove themselves against said Crimson Tide in a college football quarterfinal. Instead, here we are at the 4, and we'll get the numbers from Vinny and Chris in a few minutes.
So looking at my numbers, Jeff, with that 2 and 3 matchup, I would have Texas as a 5.5-point favorite
over
neutral site over Washington.
5.5.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I might be. Hey.
Yeah, I will say, based off this bracket, I want to see what the future books realign at, but I think Texas is winning this thing. I really do. I think the Horns are going to win this thing. But
we'll
regardless,
see. Maybe I didn't move Washington up enough from that win over Oregon. We'll see what the odds makers do, but yeah, it should be interesting.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back into the NFL games, we'll get the lines for this college football Final Four, Michigan, Alabama in Pasadena. Washington, Texas, in New Orleans. Florida State left out at 13-0. We'll discuss it more. And then the NFL slate, of course, as we keep it rolling on a Sunday. Sports by the Book here at the South Point Studio.
We have 11 amazing restaurants featuring a wide variety for every price range and appetite. South Point's Garden Buffet has something for everyone at unbeatable prices. Or, if hunger strikes in the middle of the night, join us at Coronado Cafe. The American menu offers breakfast, lunch, or dinner 24 hours a day, plus a Chinese kitchen for authentic Chinese dishes from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. From steak and eggs to wonton soup, it's fast and friendly service 24/7. When you need a quick pick-me-up, you can find it at our state-of-the-art Starbucks just inside the main South Point entrance. Order ahead with the Starbucks app for easy mobile order pickups. Or enjoy your favorites in the relaxing dining area anytime, day or night. If you love Mexican food, Baja Miguel's has all of your south-of-the-border favorites. There are dozens of classics to choose from, like fajitas, ceviche, chimichangas, tacos, and more. And for spirit lovers, Baja's colorful non-smoking tequila bar is right outside. Or maybe you're in the mood for seafood. Big Sur Oyster Bar has fresh seafood prepared right before your eyes. Savor freshly shucked oysters, crab legs jambalaya, shrimp and lobster. Beers on tap and a selection of fine wines are perfect to pair with your seafood favorite. Whether lunch or dinner, you'll love this fun atmosphere, located just off the casino floor. Ready to shake things up? Step back in time and treat yourself to one of the oldest restaurant chains in the country. Steak and Shake, famous for original mouth-watering steak burgers and hand-dipped milkshakes in a variety of flavors. For some old-fashioned fun, try Steak and Shake.
Welcome back in. Sports by the Book is the show. I'm Jeff Parles. A lot happening today in NFL Sunday. College football playoff. Final four is set. Vinny Magliulo will be on set. Well, he will be in a second. You'll see him in about 30 seconds from now. Alex White is here as well. Alex had a shout-out, though.
Yes, I do. Thank you for everybody for watching, and our numbers are going up. So please keep subscribing and keep sharing our show. Special shout-out to Indy and Tommy, because I know that their parents always make them turn off the cartoons and watch us. So hi, you two, and everybody else for watching. Thank you.
There we go.
And of course, Steiner's Oasis here in Vegas, and Dom's Pizzeria.
Yep, Dom's Pizzeria in Trafford, Pennsylvania, of course, as we know. All right, Vincenzo is here as well. We will get. I promise we will get him on camera in a second here.
Let's eat.
Let's see. Hey, look, Jimmy, have the food in the back for today again?
Getting it right after kickoff.
Okay.
Right after kickoff, we get the delivery.
So let's go with the instant reaction here, Vinny. I think they got it right. I understand why people are going to be aggravated. Florida State got left out, a 13-0 Power 5 champion, not in. But when we're going off of, hey, four best, quote-unquote, four best teams, of course we aren't going to officially get that because Georgia still would be a top 4 power-rated team. But based off these conference champions, based off everything, I think the committee got the right 4. And, boy, we got some great matchups in these games.
Well, these are good games again. You know, look, and I sent this out this morning too, right? The debate's going to rage, and that's fine. That's not going to stop. And, you know, we don't get ourselves caught up in it. You know, Chris and I were just sitting in the back and going over numbers with this, and they're actually loading them in the system now because there's the administrative part of it. So I'll tell you what I made and what Chris made, and then South Point numbers are going to come out, and we'll post them. But I did learn something last night too. I heard I heard that the committee has a provision in their guidelines,
okay,
to take into consideration injuries. Right? Did you hear that?
Yeah. No, that's
and to me, I know, you know what? I don't want to quite say that it's a cop out or anything like that. Look, because we knew based on the results yesterday, especially if Florida State won, that somebody was going to be on the outside looking in. You can make a case for Georgia, too, because Georgia's really got a higher power rating still than Florida State. Not that Florida State did not. But the reality is that, the way we move forward is this. Okay, committee, give us the teams, give us the matchups, and we'll go from there. I think just to kind of fast forward a little bit, outside of these two games, I think there's going to be some challenges with the rest of these bowl games because I think we're going to have more players opting out this year. I think the transfer portal, which is in essence free agency, is going to impact a lot of games too. So I don't know if there'll be as much of a rush, if you will, to necessarily put up the other, what are there, 41 bowl games, the other 39 games. So that's just a little sidebar there. But look, these are two good matchups, and I've got the South Point openers right now.
Go for it.
Let's go with in terms of Michigan and Bama. Michigan here at South Point is a 2-point favorite.
Okay.
Texas playing Washington. Texas 4. It's now. Chris and I, sat and we crunched. We started actually crunching numbers yesterday because we're always, in look ahead mode, right? So, I think you're seeing some 2.5s out there. I think you're seeing a little bit higher on Michigan, and I think you're seeing a little bit higher on Texas, probably 4.5 and 5. My numbers came to Michigan 3 and Texas. I had them 5 in my power ratings. Obviously, neutral fields. These games are a month away. We'll watch to see how teams, get through their training and everything. I think if you look too, frankly, Michigan's got some offensive line issues, injuries, especially at center. So we'll have to see how they heal there. Everybody's a bit nicked up. Chrissy's numbers were a little lower than mine. So our exercise is, what do you think? What are your thoughts on it? Why? And then at the end of the day, Chris says, okay, this is it. He's director and puts them out. And, I love the exercise. We always have a good time doing this. Of course, we do. We've been doing it for quite some time now, especially for the NCAA tournament. So we kind of took a page out of the NCAA tournament. And that's exactly what that's what the show was.
No, yeah, 100%.
Too, right? So, but yeah, so those are the numbers opening here at South Point. Once again, Michigan 2 over Bama, and Texas 4 over Washington. Those are in the system, folks, and they're not up there for show. Those are not Christmas lights on the board.
The interesting thing, when Chris texted us and just looking at the market, true, you guys opened lower than the market on both of these games.
Well,
actually,
because our consensus was lower.
Yeah,
too, when you look at that,
and quite frankly, it would not have shocked me with the way that Alabama won yesterday, and the way that Michigan. Look, their defense was dominant, but they were playing Iowa. Let's take it with a grain of salt.
Special teams, actually, too.
Michigan special teams was great yesterday.
Yeah,
if I was elite at something, they're elite at special teams, and Michigan outplayed them on special teams. But Michigan averaged 3 yards of play yesterday. The only reason they covered that game was because they scored 2 touchdowns on fields of less than 10 yards.
Yeah.
I would be very concerned with if I were seeing that number and saying, whoa, I can lay less than a field goal with the Wolverines. I would be very careful with that because of what you mentioned. There are a lot of injuries on that offensive line, including Zinter, who is their best offensive lineman, who's not playing again this year. The other game I'm not betting right now, even though I think Texas wins, but I'm going to be on Alabama in this game because, as we've also seen, when we've had these controversies over who should be in, who should not, it goes one of two ways. Either the team that gets in that shouldn't, quote unquote, shouldn't be in,
right,
gets crushed, or they do the crushing. And this feels like Alabama will be doing. Well, I don't know if they'll be doing crushing, but I do like Alabama to win the game against Michigan in Pasadena.
Well, I think when you look at this Alabama, and we've talked a lot about Alabama, right? And I felt that Alabama really did a terrific job. Again, we'll go back to after the loss at home to Texas and the quarterback flip-flop thing. this is one of you could make a case maybe that this is maybe Saban's best coaching.
Yeah.
I mean, week 2
Since he's been
loss. Week 3 was one of the worst games I think they've played in the Saban era since his first year, even though they won against South Florida. And a heck of a coaching job.
There was a lot of concern, not only by Bama fans and backers, but by Saban himself. Don't forget, he signed after the spring game, right? I think Milroe came in after. No, kid from Notre Dame came in after the spring game. Alabama's always been, look, we're set, we're ready to go. It's when you saw that, you had to say to yourself, wait, wow. And again, back then, full disclosure, Chris and I were in agreement. We had Georgia, a 6-point higher rated power rating team going into the season than over Alabama. Again, Saban and staff, credit those players. They did a great job. And if Alabama got in, Texas had to get in. I know they announced Texas first, and they certainly weren't going to put those two up against each other again, right? Unless of course that's the national championship game rematch. But that's how we looked at it. So that's our exercise. Jimmy, what do you make it? Vinny, what do you make it? Chris, what do you make it? And Chris, as director, makes the decision, and those are the numbers that are out there.
All right, I want to go over to the NFL. Let's go to the game that everyone is talking about. It's going to be the biggest bet game of the late card here today, Vinny. Maybe the biggest bet game of the whole day today. And that's San Francisco and Philadelphia, where, again, Niners favored on the road up to 3 in this one. With the Eagles, this is the latest in the season. A 10-1 or better team has been an underdog at home at. And here you go. Vinny, I understand why the bettors have done this. I understand what the power ratings say. But you're giving me a whole field goal with the Philadelphia Eagles at home against anyone? Well, I'm obliged to take it.
Actually, you're going to have to wait because it's 2.5 right now.
You went back to 2.5. Okay, there you go.
Just right before I was walking over.
Well, it's a good thing I already have my 3.
Right.
Yeah, no, for sure. It'll probably go back. Listen, it's an afternoon game, so you have some time, and it's a toggler, as I say, laying 2.5 and taking 3. And Chris just approved a 20 dime bet at the window right before I came in. So, listen, it's a great game, and look, the game. It's interesting too because a lot of people say, how could you make? Why is this number this way? Well, don't forget we opened at 1.5. They laid it up to 3.
Right.
It's like the Oregon game the other day. And especially I love this after the game when Washington wins the game. Oh, how could you guys make the Ducks a 10-point for you? See, you're out of your mind. You're wrong. Well, they laid 9 and 9.5. They were laying 10 at kickoff. So we don't let that faze us or bother us. But that again, people, you've got your opinion. That's what the numbers are up there for, to measure your opinion against those numbers, and if you so choose, to bet on or against.
I'm glad you brought up that game because that's kind of how I feel with the Eagles here. I need some of that Washington Huskies energy where they're like, don't count us out yet. And the numbers are where they are. Yeah, it's how they've been playing the last few weeks.
They find a way.
The Niners are the better team right
now.
now.
But I think the Niners are also the healthier. That's right. I'm sorry, Alex.
They are.
They're the healthier team, which actually enters into I think not only the opening price, okay, but I also think that the initial laying of the 1.5 and the 2 early in the week, that is professional money, and I think that came into play as well to an extent, particularly the Goddard injury, which is really important to their offense at tight end, but their defensive injuries, I think, also entered into some of the thinking.
The Washington point is exactly what entered my mind this week, also, where we totally all right, they're winning ugly. They're not winning the way that we want our eyes to see, but they're winning the game.
Sure,
right.
And that was a neutral site here, of course. And you know what? I thought the number was right on the Oregon game. I thought Oregon should be almost a 10-point favorite, and Washington won the game outright. Here, I think personally this game should be a pick because the weather looks like There's a possibility of rain.
Maybe a little soggy, yeah.
Little soggy. And look, Vinny, I know we talk about home field advantage in the NFL a lot differently today than we did even 3 years ago now.
Sure.
But that is one of the buildings where I think there is a home field advantage.
Oh, no question. I mean, when you're in the town that pelted Santa Claus with snowball, I mean, yeah. So no, there's no question about it. Some of the most passionate and rabid fans, but the Niners are used to that as well. I mean, and the Niners travel well too. So you've got to take into consideration when you're looking at a home field advantage. Is there a basic number for a home field advantage per team? Yes, but it also you've got to factor in obviously the opponent and who travels well, who does. Tennessee, I think is winless on the road this year, right? And they've won. I think they've won every game in Nashville. I'm not going to include the home game in London. So there's a difference to the way teams travel. And we've had to learn that. I mean, again, that's from our side of the counter. Again, you go back to another time back in the 70s and 80s, and it was an automatic. Oh, so the home team, it's an automatic 3. It was an automatic 3. Not really. And again, some of the lessons that we've had to learn are costly, but you'll learn them.
Well, and of course, you have to factor in the revenge thing here, right? The Eagles won the NFC championship last week to knock them out. So, yeah, they circled this game. They're going to be ready
Purdy
for
got
it.
hurt in that game, right, Alex?
Purdy got hurt in that game. That's why I actually like this over, too, because that game was on track to be an over game last year. Mm-hmm. Eagles won 31-7. Of course, Brock Purdy getting hurt and coming out of that one. So, two of the best offensive lines, if not the best offensive lines in the NFL. I think we're going to see a lot of points here between these two. Hopefully it's not too rainy because that might change things a little bit.
Total up to 47.5 from the opener of 46.5. So they bet over 46.5 and 47. Mm-hmm.
Going back to the earlier kicks real quick. Miami and Washington, we haven't touched this game yet. Vinny, you're at 49.5 on this one. Miami, of course, favorite on the road in Landover. Alex, I did nothing. This one. You put your heads up, so I think we're simpatico in doing nothing with this game.
I think if you're going to look at props, Sam Howell over 38.5 passing attempts because they're running the least in the NFL, and if they're playing from behind, which I'm assuming they will be, they're going to be trying to pass the ball a lot.
Well, I think Ashawn is probably going to play today, right? He's going to give it a go too for the Dolphins. Yes. The Dolphins. They laid the 9, went to 9.5, and they took 9.5. I think some folks were waiting for the 10. Didn't happen. So back to 9 here. The Dolphins. The weather's a factor here at this game, as you mentioned, Jeff. Dolphins are in every teaser and every money line parlay. You look at that, and that's the general public looking at those.
With Miami, as both of these teams are on rest. Extra rest.
Yes.
Washington played Thursday. Miami played Friday. Mm-hmm. So there's no distinct advantage in that one. I don't
give him a chance to get a little bit healthier, right?
I don't mind your prop. I really don't mind your prop on that one. All right, Denver and Houston. This got moved from a late kick to an early kick. Texans. Vinny, you guys are the only 3.5 in the market right now on this game. It's mostly 3 - 20 on the Texans here.
Yeah, and again, we don't move the money on the 3. And that's just a philosophy. That's not a critique. I've done both over the years. So yeah, they're laying 3 and taking 3.5 with this one. You look at the game. It's a good game. Both teams are close to each other in the standings, vying for a playoff spot. Looks like Judy is probable, I think, for the you've got the actives and inactives already, and it looks like Judy is, I think he's going to play today for the Broncos. They seem to be in sync, right, Alex? I mean, I think when you look at Russell Wilson and Sean Payton, it's a completely different. It's not just a completely different team. It's a completely different vibe between those two than we saw in the first 6 games of the season.
I was very close to taking the 3.5 with the Broncos, but I think I might have missed the window with them where they have this 5-game winning streak and then me trying to jump on here against this good Houston Texans team. So I stayed away from this. I would look at the under here because of how Denver has been playing defense so much better, and then they're also just running the ball, limiting mistakes, and running out the clock. I just don't know, Vinny, if what they're doing is sustainable. And Chris kind of brought that up too. Yes, takeaways. They've had 16 in the last 6 weeks, but is that luck? Can they keep this going? So I thought, better not jump in this one. Let's watch this one. I think the Texans are really good. I like this.
Oh no,
team.
yeah. I think you've got to. Sometimes you have to take apart. Sometimes you just have to wait on a game, right? And say, let me go to let me study it a little bit more because you have other options, right? Now, to your point though about the total, if you do bet the under, you're going to get the best number because it's up 2 points from the opener at now 47.5, 2.5 points actually. We opened at 45.
Because the Texans, they play fast and they can score quickly. But I think Denver's defense can slow them down.
There you go.
Here.
I didn't do anything here. I did nothing. Denver's win streak has coincided with this ridiculous turnover margin. Plus 14 in this win streak. That is not sustainable. It's just not. Houston, though, and part of the reason that I'm not jumping to bet Houston today is I think that defense is terrible. And last week, somehow that game landed only 45 points. I don't know how that game only landed 45. It should have landed probably in the 50s, but we got it only 45. And Stroud is starting to throw turnover plays.
He's forcing
the action a little bit more than you would anticipate, especially for a guy who didn't throw a pick his first 6 games in his career. So I stayed off of this. I think both of these teams are due for a regression. That's why this is a really, really difficult betting game for me. And you know what? You mentioned the in-game, Vinny, all the time. This is probably a good in-game game because I feel like if someone gets up double digits in this game, you come back the other way regardless of who it is.
Jeff, and again, when Alex mentioned in the beginning, appreciate the folks for tuning in and listening. It's a valuable lesson, and it's not the exact same situation as yesterday, but yesterday I remember Alex asking a question about she had Alabama to win the SEC at plus 275, and what could she do or consider to guarantee herself something, right? Well, the thing was exactly to what we said. Wait for the in-game, right? Because if Alabama jumps out, which they did, and I don't know if you did this or not, Alex, and I don't want to put you on the spot.
I didn't, Vinny, because I was at the UNLV game and I was too distracted by that game. I watched them go up 10-7, and I was like, I think I'm just going to.
So, okay, good. You could, but depending on at what point, you could have taken points with Georgia. So it's a similar situation here. Again, I oftentimes say this: you don't have to bet every game, or you have to book every game here in this situation, which is fine. But sometimes you pass, sometimes you watch and see. And again, today different than a decade ago, even where the in game a decade ago and previously was a halftime. It was the second half. So you've got the options now. So to the folks out there, as bettors utilize the options, and as operators utilize the options too. How do you mitigate mitigate and manage your risk?
Let's get to these last 2 games of the day here that we haven't gotten to yet. Cleveland, Joe Flacco.
Yeah.
Welcome to the party in 2023. The 4th Cleveland Browns starting quarterback this year. It's week 13, Vinny. Rams are 3.5. 40's the total. And look, this just kind of shows that the Browns have started 4 quarterbacks and this is their 12th game. The fact they're 7-4, I know their defense has been amazing, but this is pretty amazing that the Browns are in this position where if they pull it, again, 3.5-point favorites win all the time. They win all the time. Or 3.5-point underdogs, I should say, win all the time. They win this game. They're 8-4, Vinny, with 4 starting quarterbacks in 12 games.
Well, when you look at this game, it's interesting, right? Now, the Browns have a lot of injuries, and not just, at the quarterback position. Their defense has been terrific. They also have averaged 13 points a game without Deshaun Watson, of all those quarterbacks, and as erratic as he has played sometime. And now you have Joe Flacco. When was the last time Joe Flacco played an NFL game? I think it was in MetLife for the Jets a couple of years ago, right? So you're asking an awful lot here against a healthier Rams team who really, is on the fringe of the mix here. listen, when you've got a playoff team, and we'll look at, I mentioned the Falcons here, that's under 500. If you're, and I realize that it's a division, and it's the weakest division in terms of power ratings and results. The Rams are saying to themselves, listen, we're healthy. We've got a shot here. There's 17 games. There's 7 teams going to the playoffs. Their defense is good also, led by Aaron Donald. Let's remember that. And you know what? Hey, Joe Flacco is, look, I know the guy's got a ring, but it was a long time ago. And he's coming in off of a very long break. You're asking an awful lot here. This is a game that's gone up and down the ladder. 4.5 on the opener, up to 5. We were seeing a lot of Rams money yesterday. And here we are today, even with all their injuries and Joe Flacco, that there's Browns money, and now we're back down to 3.5. Chris and I were talking yesterday. We thought this game was going to continue to go up and go back up to the opener and through it, actually. But we've not seen that just yet. But again, there's time for that. I think the public gets involved with this game, and I think they get involved with the Rams. And it's an afternoon game with a lot of carryover, Alex.
Great point, Vinny. So I don't think anyone really had the Rams power rated that high to start the season. And then, you got to adjust because you do have Sean McVay, and they have so many weapons, Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, and, of course, Matthew Stafford under center. So they've done very well. 5-6, pretty shocking. I think everyone had already counted them out. I didn't do anything. I don't know what to expect with Joe Flacco. I know he completed 58% of his passes and went for 5.5 yards per pass his last year. That's all I have to go off of. And maybe we'll see if we have an in-game opportunity.
Flacco can still spin it a little bit. The problem last year is he couldn't move. So
you think he can move more this year?
No, that's what I'm saying.
That's what
I'm saying. Like, you can't
Maybe
move.
He did some yoga.
Yeah. But that's my thing. Like, Cleveland's offensive line, and you're playing a D line that's not particularly good, but they have Aaron Donald.
Right.
So good luck trying to block Aaron Donald. So nothing for me in this one. All right, let's get to Sunday night before we get out of here so we give people their 2 minutes before the game start. Kansas City, Green Bay. Down to 5.5, Vinny. I'm not really surprised that the people have been coming in on the Packers in this one tonight.
Some dog money showing today in these games. When you notice, naming the games we're talking about. I mean, even I know you already talked about the Panthers game. There's money showing for the Panthers today against the Buccaneers. But as far as this goes, I think people want to see more consistency out of the Chiefs, and the Chiefs are still, they have been. Under the Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes era, a very public team. They still are a public team, but there's professional money that goes against because the public can drive those numbers up, and the pros get involved here. So this game 6.5 down to 5.5. But again, it's prime time. Everything from today, everything from yesterday actually too, is going to be going to this game. So with all of that carryover. There'll be Chiefs money. And if the Chiefs are going for us, that's okay. Packers are playing much better though.
I'm going over 21 in the first half because I've been looking at a lot of overs. First half, game kind of slows down in the second. That's why we've had so many unders as a whole game, especially for the Chiefs. Jeff mentioned it the other day though. Kind of reversed last week against the Raiders. Came out flat, but then they still scored 14 in the second quarter, and then it was all Chiefs second half. So. Yeah. Green Bay, in the last 3 weeks, they've been doing the same thing in that first half, trying to come up. They went from 7.5 points a game on average to the last 3 games, 15.3.
If you're going to go over in a half, do it in the first half. More why? Well, seriously, you notice, Alex. I mean, it's real basic. No matter who has the ball, and
someone's
no matter what the
score those last 2 minutes.
Both teams are going to try to score. Yeah. So it doesn't matter.
All right, we'll get the Monday night game tomorrow, even though it's up to 10 now on Jacksonville against the Cincinnati Bengals. Vinny, thank you.
Good to be with both of you.
Alex,
good job,
thank
team.
you. Good work as always behind the glass. Neverett, Jerry, and Sean back there today. I'm Jeff Parles. We'll see you tomorrow. Sports by the Book, 3 o'clock Pacific time here at the South Point Studio.